Hey, One Detroit, I'm Christy McDonald, and here's what's coming up on arts and culture this week. Detroit punk rock band Cinecyde stake their claim as the first punk rockers in the Motor City. Plus the role of women in jazz with Terry Lynn Carrington from the famed Berklee College of Music. And the story behind a favorite on Chinese restaurant menus in Michigan, Almond Boneless chicken. It's all coming up this week on One Detroit Arts and Culture.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support for this program provided by the Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Kresge Foundation, Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Also brought to you by the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation. And viewers like you.
Hi there, and welcome to One Detroit Arts and Culture. I'm Christy McDonald. Thanks so much for being with me. Wow, has the world shifted in just a week? More vaccinations, less masks, a sense of opening back up to the world. And as more performances and concerts get on the summer schedule, we're keeping you in touch with artists, music, and cultural events that we love to engage with and that really fill our soul. Coming up on the show this week, how dissatisfaction with rock music brought us Detroit punk rock band Cinecyde, and how the DIY rockers have evolved since the 70s. This is a great story. You're going to hear from the band. Plus, Aaron Dworkin and his Arts Engine series explores the role of women in jazz with Terry Lynn Carrington of the Berklee College of Music in Boston. And if you're a fan of Chinese food, chances are you've had almond boneless chicken. But did you know that dish is a Michigan thing? We'll take you through its local history as part of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. It is all coming up. Detroit has never been shy about its pioneering music scene, and that includes punk rock. So much of the music was self-produced and self-released, but rivaled the punk scene in New York and in LA. One of Detroit's first punk bands, Cinecyde, formed in the mid-70s, and they're still making music today. Right now they're working on their latest album, and we even have a look inside their recent recording sessions, thanks to Facebook. You know, we didn't know a lot about Cinecyde until our One Detroit editor, Chris Jordan, punk rock fan in his own right who did some work with the band, introduced us.
Wanna look, wanna let you see. Wanna speak, wanna let you say. Run it back, same as before.
Punk rock was really sort of a dissatisfaction about rock and roll. It became one thing, or it became a narrower thing, and it was at the exclusion of anything else. Because you were passionate about music, we were passionate about music. You got angry. You know, passion, anger, you know, there's punk rock. There you go.
Here comes one single warning, coming to you from over the way.
Formed in 1976, the same year that the Sex Pistols and the Ramones released their first singles, Cinecyde were, depending who you ask, Detroit's first punk band.
We thought we were completely alone. You know, Detroit was filled with cover bands, you know, and just doing rock and roll covers. You know, that just wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't a good enough kick.
We decided to make a record, Gutless Radio, which is sort of an anthem against radio at the time.
We don't like you, no, Gutless Radio. We don't like the things we do.
As we discovered that there were some other things going on in other parts of the country or other parts of the world, you would get wind of, you know, some sort of underground band or something, and, you know, there was just no possibility that they would play any of that stuff. I mean, it was sort of brash. I mean, most bands in rock and roll would be, I want to be signed. I want the industry to love me. In our case, we were, sort of just slamming the industry. with the idea that it would be, we would do it yourself, we would issue our own records and things.
They were one of the central bands in what became, by the early 80s, a thriving, eclectic, fiercely independent punk scene in Detroit.
All the clubs, and there were a lot of them that were doing punk, they were full like every night. It didn't matter who played. In fact, a lot of kids would go to the bars just because they knew something was going to go on there.
It was an eclectic scene. So, there was a nice spectrum of bands. It wasn't one thing. It was, it could be bands that were very roots-oriented, or it could be bands that were, more rock and roll, a little electronica, kind of stuff was sneaking in there. But, it all seemed to, the commonality was, it had to be a little raw, had to have a little bit of an edge.
45 years later, Cinecyde are still going strong, are still totally DIY, and just released their 8th album with the pulp sci-fi inspired title track, Vegetable or Thing.
This is a project that we worked on for a while, actually before the pandemic, and then finished it up during the pandemic. Chris Gerard was in the band and played bass with us, and we recorded a lot of that with him in the band, and then he had health troubles, and Chris went on his hiatus, and we always thought that he would end up back in the band, but things did turn for the worse, and he died. Just an amazing guy, a beautiful soul, a great creator. He always had an innovative and interesting way to look at things. Maybe 2/3 of the record was, with Chris or something, was close to being done, but we kept putting it off and putting it off. We were mixing and things during the COVID thing, so essentially, we just stayed safe and tried to be safe, but I thought we have to release this. We're not going to, not release it, and we're just going to have to try different things, like
maybe we could do a re-release when the bars
we
open.
could.
So being in the independent music scene, the Detroit punk scene, for just about 45 years, how have you seen the scene change, and how has your approach to making punk rock changed?
I don't know that I can say anything about a scene. I'm always interested in what's going on in Detroit. There's a load of great musicians, load of great people creating and making music and stuff. I mean, it's through all these different eras, through the 80s, 90s, 2000s now. I think that Detroit is sort of underplayed. It doesn't get the exposure that it should.
Has your approach to writing punk rock changed? Is it still the same sensibility, the same spirit?
I mean, Cinecyde is Cinecyde, and it has a specific kind of sound, but I would say we evolve every time, every song.
To me, punk was just about getting back to our roots, stripping music down and being, being fun, yes, being aggressive, it could be, but also, respecting and understanding those roots, and those roots could be anything from, some of the garage band sounds of 65, 66, or it could be rockabilly from the 50s, X from Los Angeles. Of course, I always appreciated the Cramps, or it could be, Hank Williams or Johnny Cash. It could be any of that kind of stuff that you're bringing to a simplicity and a more directness. The music is just, for me, it just plays in my head, so it plays in your head, and then you just kind of, try to work it out on an instrument, and then boom, there it is. Maybe, for us, maybe for me, it's just, it's my personality.
vegetable thing. It came down from outer space, wants to kill the human race. It changes shape and fools us all. Scientists say they'll cause our fall. Vegetable thing. Around and around we go. Where it stops, no one knows. How to take over the whole world. Living around at this dusty vegetable thing. It came down from outer space, wants to kill the human race. It changes shape and fools us all. Scientists say they'll cause our fall. Vegetable thing.
For more on Cinecyde and their latest projects, just head to our website at onedetroitpbs.org. Musician and founder of the Sphinx organization, Aaron Dworkin, has a new interview series here on Detroit Public Television called Arts Engines. And this week, he talked with the founder and the artistic director of the Berklee Institute of Jazz and Gender Justice, Terry Lynn Carrington. They talked about the changing roles for women in jazz.
What is an Institute for Jazz and Gender Justice?
It's just a way to bring attention to this really big problem of gender parity in jazz, and also just in the music industry in general. But my focus is jazz because that's my background, and that's basically where I make my living and what I teach. But it started off with just meeting with some students, some women students, that told me some stories that were just kind of shocking because I didn't grow up with the same kind of experience they did. It really opened my eyes to seeing that these issues really needed to be addressed at our institution, but just in the field in general. And just because I had a very exceptional career and childhood and was protected and kind of ushered into the jazz world by my father and other greats, I had a responsibility now to really look at the issue from without of my own perspective and try to, bring others along with me and to point out to my colleagues and comrades in the jazz world and mentors even that something is terribly wrong.
There are clearly these issues relating to gender and jazz. What are the ways in which you address it? Are there different kind of focus areas or pockets or ways that you tackle it?
Well, the first way is just providing a safe, nurturing place for not just young women, but people from the entire gender spectrum to be able to learn the music. That's like the first thing, because there are transgender students that I didn't know were at Berklee that have found us, and a lot of young women that always feel this barrier, even in a classroom or in an ensemble, they don't feel as supported and nurtured. So even the young men that are in our program, because it's not just for women, but since these young men have gravitated to this program, the young women feel supported by them and not judged and not, like they're being given an opportunity just because they're women. They feel like, they really have an environment to buckle down and try to learn this music, which is hard enough in itself. And we also have a lot of guest artists to come in and give them, lessons and lead ensembles, do composition work, private lessons. They come for, a few days at a time. So I think that within a semester we might have 6 or 7 guest artists, which are great opportunities for the students, to learn directly from, these masterful musicians.
What would you like to see different in the field, say 10 years from now, that you would have been instrumental in helping to bring about?
People, it seems to me that people just say that they didn't realize that this problem existed, and which is, it seems odd, but I can relate to it because I didn't as well for so long, and I'm in it. So I think that just this awareness of, oh, right, there is something wrong with it. None of the music that we play, none of the composers are women, none of the jazz standards are written by women. Most of the band leaders aren't. So you have patrons, presenters, radio journalists, all people that are coming now more to a consciousness around this issue. And I see it changing, so I'm extremely hopeful. But in 10 years' time, it would be great to see, more gender equality in our field, and not just in the performers, but also, with education, with teachers, with journalists, with scholars. So that's kind of, my goal in 10 years is to have helped contribute to that kind of equality.
So you touched a little on, you've had this extraordinary opportunity and really was able to come into jazz early and have had just such an extraordinary career. When did you kind of realize this is my thing, right? Was there a moment that kind of happened for you?
No, I always felt ownership in the music. And that's the first thing that I try to, relate to our students, that this is your music. You have the right to be here. You have the right to play it. And it was hard for me at first to relate to people that didn't feel that way, because I've always felt that. But just to, kind of stand in your own authenticity, inside of the music is not easy for a lot of people. And also, I think so many of, so much of what we come to expect from a jazz musician is steeped in masculinity. So we have not fully accepted the feminine aesthetic, in the music. So I think that everybody has to start to listen differently. And even myself, I've had to start to listen differently and also look at my own playing, because I've always compared it to every other guy out there. So I had to be just as strong and just as, in touch with, my own masculinity to be competitive with them. And so now it's like a whole different way of thinking. It's transformational, really.
And finally, as we continue to mark Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we take a look back at one of our most popular food stories. If you are a fan of Chinese food here in Michigan, chances are you've ordered almond boneless chicken. But where did this dish start? That's what One Detroit's Bill Kubota wanted to find out. He brings us more.
Gone missing, so we are here to get the last, whatever they got.
Last supper at Kim's.
Yeah, last supper at Kim's.
Last Chinese supper at Kim's.
Kim's, here in Troy, Michigan since 1974, closing for good.
What's your favorite dish?
Sweet and sour chicken and egg drop soup.
How about you?
Almond boneless chicken. Yeah.
What do you know about almond boneless chicken?
I don't know very much about it, but Kim's makes the best that I've ever had.
This is an old-line Chinese restaurant, one of Metro Detroit's mainstays these past 50 years.
First booth on the right-hand side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I knew we would get busier, but I just didn't know how busy we would get, how many people wanted to come and say goodbye.
Margaret Yee and her siblings spent their lifetimes building this business, but the next generation of Yees have other career plans.
Hi. Oh, now I can give you a hug. At least I have a breathing minute. I know, it felt so bad.
Kim's features Cantonese cuisine, you might say Detroit-style Cantonese, with a signature dish, something the next generation Chinese Americans who worked in their parents' restaurants know all about.
Almond chicken is most definitely like the king of Chinese food.
I would say for Michigan Chinese, almond chicken is the most iconic.
Everybody knows what ABC means, almond boneless chicken.
We would always put ABC on it so we could differentiate what we were packing in the carryout.
Lots of customers now, they put the order, I want ABC.
It's a Michigan thing.
ABC's origins go back to southeastern China, not far from Canton, now called Guangzhou. On the Pearl River Delta sits the city of Toisan. Toisan, not pronounced like it's spelled.
Toisan is like where the huge emigration patterns happen. So our uncle came to Michigan with, and it's like, why didn't you go to San Francisco or New York? And they landed in Cass Corridor in Chinatown. And so then, of course, he brings over his like 7 siblings. And now my dad's side was all here, but they're all Toisan.
Many decades ago, career paths for Chinese in Detroit were limited. Washing clothes or serving food.
My grandfather said, well, I try laundry, but when the business is slow, I have nothing to eat. But at least if I worked in the restaurant when business is slow, I still have all these food I can eat. I won't go hungry.
Detroit's Chinatown restaurants shared recipes and adapted them for American tastes. Then the restaurants moved to the suburbs, where ABC became a top seller. At the Golden Crown in Bloomfield Hills, Connie Lowe has been making it for more than 40 years.
The older generation, they live in Michigan, they come out with this.
Does anybody know who came up with it first?
And that's the question.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. Don't know. Well, there's some ideas of like which restaurant might have started it, but I don't know. I would never say.
When they first started the almond boneless chicken, they didn't call it almond boneless chicken. They call it washu gai.
A wasu gai?
Yeah, we heard that many of times throughout the years.
Yeah.
Saying washu gai was a little too hard for a lot of people. And actually, washu doesn't really translate to almond boneless chicken. But looking at the dish, people were able to describe it. And I think that's probably what happened.
A simple presentation. No secret ingredients, but a key one, cornstarch, which will help give ABC its crunch.
The reason I put a little cornstarch because I want to make sure they absorb all the water so it won't be so watery.
Then comes the breading and the frying.
So I dip on the breading. I make sure the breading is even.
It's all in the technique of frying the chicken and the right temperature, when to bring it out. It's all in the technique.
The chopped fried chicken rides on a bed of lettuce.
And then we put gravy on top.
Then some onions. At the Golden Crown, they used to add slivered almonds until Connie began to worry about customers with nut allergies. Now, no almonds. And no loss for ABC enthusiast Ro Roosh.
Now let me demonstrate. This chicken, when you go to open it up, is actually white and soft, and it is not dried out.
ABC comes with many dining options.
So I always like to put it on my rice so I have the sauce on it.
Everybody different. Some people ask
Exactly.
for more lettuce. Some people say, I don't want no lettuce. I don't put it on top. I always put the rice on the side.
So that's 2 different ways that you can have it.
Yeah.
But also in the gravy, there's water chestnuts for crunchiness.
Mhm.
So you have more texture than just the chicken and
It's
the
good.
batter.
It's still crispy.
I mean, you just kind of gain the craving and you love, like, you end up loving the food that's there. But then your parents tell you, like, that's not real Chinese food.
No? How about Chinese American food? Susie Moy had to leave home to learn the real story about ABC.
When she moved to San Francisco, she was expecting almond chicken out there, and when she got out there, she's like, the Chinese food's not the same out here as it is back home.
I can't tell you how many restaurants. So one, you would ask about almond chicken. They're like, oh, yeah, we got almond chicken. We're like, is it deep fried? Or you would try to describe it. They're like, oh, no, not deep fried. And then And then sometimes they would say that they have it was deep fried, but it would be like a stir fry.
So I have a lot of customers, they move to Chicago, they move to Florida. Whenever I come back to visit, they always have an almond chicken because of these, they don't have it anywhere else.
Well, it's kind of like Detroit pizza. People really didn't know about Detroit pizza. We had our own pizza. It wasn't just New York or Chicago.
Like square pizza and Coney Island hot dogs, our cuisine has been discovered in other places. Almond boneless chicken, you can also find it in Columbus, Ohio. So there is something those Buckeyes love about Michigan after all.
And that is going to do it for One Detroit Arts and Culture. Thanks so much for joining me. Make sure you find us at onedetroitpbs.org and follow us on social media. I'll see you for One Detroit on Thursday. Take care and be well.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support for this program provided by the Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Kresge Foundation, Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Also brought to you by the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, and viewers like you.